want to connect with you. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, John, I'm sorry we're not connecting. I guess I have to work harder on this." And it was like, it was actually like a sweet, sarcastic, kind of witty, acerbic comment that I thought brought me closer to her. I
Yeah.
enjoyed that we were having this little sparring match. But the people who watched the clip of it, they jumped into the comments and just spat the worst vitriol because they're my audience seeing my stuff and they're going to probably share a similar worldview to me, and it did the opposite of what I wanted it to make people understand our common humanity, but the video that did the best is the one where they were able to say, look at this fake woman who can't say one good thing about a city she lived in. She's the worst, and she's married to an evil police union leader, and it just like wit spun out, and like it I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to feel about that. Am I contributing to the problem? Maybe.
John, I can tell you exactly what you did wrong.
Huh.
You went to the internet looking for reason.
Fair. Fair
That's
point.
that's what happened. You have to be interrupting her and yelling at her and calling her a Nazi, and she's got to call you a
Yeah.
pinko who's trying to destroy everything she grew up loving.
Well, yeah, and that's that. I got a lot of criticism from the progressive left here in Minneapolis. Like this is a lefty city, right? And a lot of my audience is from here, and so I got some flack for platforming her is the word
Yeah.
that people use about this. And people said, why didn't you, she threw out all these things that were falsehoods, and why didn't you call it out in the moment? But that's not, I don't see that as my job, nor is it what I'm good at, nor is it like if I'm going toe to toe with her in a little rectangle on a split screen like we are in right now, she's going to win every time because she does that every single day for her
Right.
job. And that's just not something I knew I could do well at, and not something I was interested in. And so like when she said stuff that like to me was like, oh, I don't think when she said like, show me one thing in that documentary that's a falsehood, that's a lie. I'm like, well, we could go down the list of things that I picked up on, but like
Yeah.
that wasn't gonna meet my mission of like, connecting with someone who I disagree with.
I was going to ask you what you thought of the fall of Minneapolis, and I'll tell you that I didn't have a problem with it mostly because I knew where it was coming from. Like
Hmm.
I knew before I watched it what Alpha News was, Liz
Hmm.
Collins slant. So I kind of watched it as and this is I think this is Alpha News's approach in general. I'm watching a thought process of people who don't usually present these things. Like there's a lot of things in that documentary that are conjecture, that are opinion, but there's a couple things in there that are fact that, like, yeah, we didn't hear in the
Hmm.
run up to this thing. What were your impressions of it in general? Like, you love Minneapolis, so I'm sure a lot of
Hmm.
that stuff was a little rough, presentation wise.
Well,
What'd you think?
let me start with a compliment. Is that it opens with a 17-minute uncommented on sequence of body camera footage that I'd never seen before. The footage of the officers arriving to cup foods and encountering George Floyd for the first time, and it really gave a fullness of the interaction that George Floyd had with those officers. Um, Now, it used it to kind of make arguments that I find abhorrent, like the idea that this was a guy who was gonna die anyway. He had problems. He was on fentanyl. He had heart problems. He wasn't murdered. It's just like it is like I don't know, lying to my eyes from my perspective. But I appreciated that the documentary didn't start with that. It just showed the unedited raw footage to let me process and
Yeah.
draw my own conclusions. So I like that. But my big problem with the fall of Minneapolis is I feel that it was something that was a piece of rhetoric and propaganda that reached its conclusion before the production ever began. Even just the title, The Fall of Minneapolis. What's happened to Minneapolis is that it has become a political football. And it is not a political football. We are a city. We are a city that contains multitudes. We are a city in a metropolitan area of 3.2 million people. And we are a city that you might disagree with our politics. You might disagree with who our leaders are. But, you can't disagree that walking around Lake Harriet is a lovely time and a Juicy Lucy is a delicious cheeseburger, and shoveling our alleyways with our neighbors is a fundamental part of our city. And instead of talking about the fullness of our city, the Fall of Minneapolis participates in this thing that's happened since 2020, where people take their political opinions and they project it onto our entire city. And I take offense to that.
Yeah, it's difficult because you read the news stories, you read statistics, you read commentary from people telling you that the city's falling apart, it's all going to hell. But one of my favorite things to do is go to Dayblock Brewing before a Vikings game, grab my tickets
Hmm.
on Ticketmaster, head to the game, go to Pog Mahone's after, and it's a blast. It's safe, it's
Hmm.
wonderful. Going to Gophers games, absolutely love it. So
Hmm.
it's sometimes people get one or the other on stuff, and it's really
Yeah.
difficult sometimes to balance things that are real. You can't deny facts and data and things like that. But they say there's three kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. And
Hmm.
people's stories, you can't discount those. But then your own personal experience, like you just said, or my own personal
Hmm.
experience, doesn't always fit that. And I think people try to make that an either or. Either you feel Minneapolis is falling apart or it isn't, versus,
Hmm.
well, yeah, this over here is a problem, but that doesn't make this thing over here not a great time or a good thing.
I'm raising a 2 and a 4-year-old in this city, and I go to the playground with them, and we walk around the neighborhood. Yesterday I rode the B line, which is a BRT bus the bus rapid transit that goes down Lake Street. And when I got on the bus, there was a homeless person who was sleeping on the bus, right, sleeping on that last row with the 5 seats all together. And that was something that happens in cities, right?
Yeah.
Homelessness is a crisis that this country is facing. Um, and we can get into all the reasons for that. But the fact of the matter is, the bus took me to the haircut I was going to, and it was something that was maybe would have been confronting to me if I'd come up and taken that bus when I was growing up in Mankato. That's where I grew up, and I didn't see that. But it was just city living, it was urban living. And I think that the statistics, the stories that I read about Minneapolis from conservative media paints a picture of this war zone that is like in direct contradiction to what I live every day. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I see the syringes. There are syringes sometimes in like the back staircases that are not used in areas near some of the homeless shelters, for example. But then there's also like these huge community festivals that happen. We just, whether the Winteropolis just got announced over here, where we're gonna have the whole city transformed to that. Or, by the way, next time you come for a Vikings game, let me take you to a better pub because Pug Mahone's is fine, but we got some really good ones I can take you to after.
I,
Like, there's
I,
all.
I go to these games with absolute animals, so there's no accounting for taste.
All I'm saying though is like a city is not its politics, and I think that we've gotten to this place where even now we have people moving from state to state based on the political attitudes of the state, and it seems so fundamentally undemocratic and un-American to buy into that kind of thinking.
Yeah, and really, any city, any large city, it does kind of matter where you go in that
Hmm.
city. Like, I don't think anybody would confuse certain parts of I don't think anybody would confuse, say, or at least the way it used to be when I went there, uptown with
Hmm.
some of the more maybe higher crime problem areas of Minneapolis. I mean, there is no one Minneapolis. It's not a
Yeah.
monolith. There are different sections of the city.
I mean, do you know what? I'm talking to you right now, and out my window right here, I can hear the light rail going by because my office is on the corner near Hennepin Avenue, right? I'm at the
Okay.
Hennepin Avenue light rail stop out here. I would not go. I don't really go to Hennepin Avenue at 2 in the morning. And when there is gun violence that occurs here on the weekends, that's where it happens over there. But I'm here Monday to Friday during the days because that's what people who live in a city understand. They understand that you
Yeah.
go to certain places at certain times. And, if I were in my 20s, I might be going over there more. But I'm, a 40-year-old with kids and families, and I'm not out till 2 in the morning
Right.
unless I've done something seriously wrong.
Exactly. So you mentioned we talked about the Liz Collin thing. We talked about the fall of Minneapolis. You talked about, this was interesting to me. You said that you saw body cam footage of George Floyd's encounter with police that
Hmm.
you had never seen before.
Hmm.
I had seen that long after the stuff with George Floyd, but I saw it a long time after, kind of like you did. I don't know. It's hard for me. I said that I kind of took the fall of Minneapolis for what it was because you said they
Hmm.
came to a conclusion in the beginning. I kind of assumed that was their conclusion going into watching it. Um, is it true? Like, I kind of want to fact check it with you, but I don't know if
Sure.
you know. Is it true that they didn't allow all that body cam footage in Derek Chauvin's trial? That seems strange to me.
Oh, that's out of my wheelhouse of
See,
knowledge, really.
I thought I'd ask you because I heard
I
it
was
in the
living,
documentary, but I was like, there's no way.
but the thing that gets crazy, that gets I struggle with this whole conversation, is that like we all saw that cell phone footage, right? Like you
Yeah.
saw Derek Chauvin's knee in George Floyd's neck as he is handcuffed and had four fully grown men holding him to the ground as he called out "Mama" for nearly 10 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that is, I don't know how you argue against that, but what happened is like we all had to, oh, like I think we all like shook our heads, like my God, like it was horrifying. It was in a moments of just I think shared humanity that the world had looking at that of like, oh, this is bad and this is wrong. But
I
then the
think
machine
yeah.
starts to pump, right? The machine starts to pump, and then it's like, oh, but what about what drugs was he on, and what was he doing before, and what was the training of the police, and did they allow the body cam footage in the trial, and all of it
Yeah.
is ways to get away from that first reaction that we had, which was I think, a natural reaction of, God, that's horrifying.
I don't know if any of that debate happens if the protests don't get out of control. And what
Mm,
happens in Minneapolis didn't happen because I think a lot of people with certain political attitudes got angry at that. And I think they got angry. You hear a lot of people, they'll say they feel like the third precinct was sacrificed, that we didn't do enough
mhm.
to stop it. And I think that's what lead a lot of people to go back and they're like, let me try and find some things that fit kind of how I'm feeling right now. And George Floyd not getting in the car, and then the
Mhm.
drugs, and the medical examiner, and what was the other argument that Derek Chauvin learned that positioning in warrior training or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I think people go back and they pick those things because. When we all saw it, it didn't seem Republican or Democrat to me. When we all saw the first
Mhm.
cell phone footage, everyone was like, "Oh my God, this
Yeah.
is awful." I wonder because people try to make it about race or politics. I wonder if some people's position on the George Floyd thing with the drugs and the resisting arrest and everything also doesn't come from a place of not wanting to believe that stuff can happen here. That maybe